Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you again. You know, if we were here in person, I'd begin this sermon by asking you, how many of you have been tired this week? Now, there are 100 reasons why any of us could be tired. Okay, start again. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you this evening. If we were in person, I'd begin tonight by asking you, how many of you have been tired this week? I imagine many of you would nod or raise your hands, and if I asked you why, you could give me 100 different reasons of why you might be tired. Now, if I asked how many of you are weary of this pandemic, I imagine all of you would say that yes, you are very weary. And we could talk about what makes us weary. We could be like the Israelites in the story and in the wilderness and begin complaining, because sometimes you just have to get it out. We could talk about how we're weary of being online, of being on Zoom, how we're weary of not being able to come together, gather together, how we're not able to share a meal together, how we're tired of wearing masks and not seeing each other's faces, not seeing friends, how we're weary of staying home all day, how we're weary of working or we're weary of being out of work. Exhaustion, weariness, no matter who I talk to these days, everyone is experiencing it in some form. Weariness not only in body, but weariness in our spirit. In the story we heard read earlier today, Amalek comes and attacks the Israelites. Moses and his people were in battle. And the story says that whenever Moses held his arms up, his people prevailed. But when he grew weary and he couldn't hold his arms up any longer and they began to drop down, the people began to lose the battle. They began to lose the battle when Moses was exhausted. And then Aaron and Hur came, and one on either side lifted up his arms, and once again the people prevailed. You know, we're not in a physical battle, but the pandemic is our Amalek, our battle. Moses had grown weary with his people, and they were trying to just survive in the wilderness, like we're trying to survive in the pandemic wilderness. But he learned something from his weariness, and I believe that we can learn something from our weariness. We can let weariness get us down, or we can try to get some wisdom from our weariness. We can let wisdom from weariness be our teacher. Let weariness itself be our teacher. And it can be a great teacher. First of all, weariness can teach us that we can ask for help, that we do not have to do everything ourselves. Richard Rohr, a Catholic priest, says that his favorite prayer is, help us to know what is ours to do, God. Weariness can speak to us, to tell us that our worth is not based on what we do. Our worth is not based on our accomplishments. You know, American culture is so much about doing, about producing. But weariness can remind us when we're too tired to produce, to accomplish things, when we just can't go on for a time, that we are loved and we are worthy just because of who we are, our very being. It's not dependent on our accomplishments. Weariness can also help us slow down a little bit. Again, American culture here in San Mateo is so fast-paced. We get so caught up, we don't slow down and take time to simply be with one another. When I lived in Africa, the Africans had a saying that when you go on a long journey, you must rest so that your soul can catch up to your body. Weariness can help us slow down so that our soul might catch up to our bodies. Weariness can help us learn to give our emotions a chance to catch up with us. And sometimes it's important just to let ourselves feel what we feel. Weariness can teach us. Because when we are weary and we say, I cannot carry this any longer, it is an opportunity for us to trust, to hand it over to God. Instead of trying to carry everything by ourselves, when we let go and give it over in faith, our hands become open and then we receive perhaps unexpected gifts that otherwise we wouldn't have received. Weariness can help us be in solidarity with others. Sometimes when I am the most worn down, the most exhausted, the most discouraged, weariness can teach me to be in solidarity with others who are experiencing that at that same moment. There are so many in our community and around the country and around the world who are weary, who have had to carry too much during this pandemic, who were already carrying too much before they came into the pandemic. And we can feel so alone, and weariness can help us remember that we are not alone, that others, many others, are in a similar position as we are. Weariness can force us to rest so that we can regain our strength and to be resilient once again. In the Psalms, the psalmist says we journey, we travel from strength to strength. There's valleys in between, there's rest in between, there's times of discouragement in between. But we can go from strength. We rest, then we find our strength again. And weariness can remind us that we're forgetting about our joy. Again, the Psalm says, the joy of the Lord is my strength. When I can access that joy, when I can remember to be joyful about even the smallest things in life, it gives me strength. Weariness can teach us so many things. Sometimes when I'm really tired, I listen better because I've stopped and I listen. And listen for the voice of Spirit, reminding me that I am still loved. Even though I might not be able to do what I usually can do, I am still loved. I can still have joy. And dear friends, even though we're weary in this pandemic, we can't let down our guard. We have to still protect each other, still maintain the wearing of masks and the social distancing so that we can continue to thrive. that we can have a healthy community. We need to protect each other the very best that we are able. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and I know you're weary. I know this has been a very trying time for so many people, for so many of you. And yet here you are, still showing up, still finding ways to connect in community, still finding ways to strengthen your faith. The scriptures remind us, do not grow weary in well-doing. So continue those things. Find your joy that you might have strength. And you know, I'll end with this. There's a favorite prayer that I have that sometimes I say at night. God, it is night after a long day. What is done is done. What is left undone is undone. Let it be. Tomorrow is a new day, and I begin again with your mercy and your grace, your love and your joy. The night is for rest. May I rest in peace in you. I invite you in your own way when you are weary to pray a prayer something like that. To let it go. To give it over. To know that you are held in your weariness and in your tiredness, and your strength will be renewed for the next day. Traveling from strength to strength with God's joy. And when we're too weary, we can ask for help. We can remember to trust. And we can remember, most of all, that we are not alone in our weariness. May God bless you. May God keep you. And may God's strength be yours where you need it most. Amen.